Hi, I'm Laura Walton, President of the Ontario School Board Council of Unions, following up on some of the discussions we've had recently about the dangers in schools in the pandemic. These discussions happened in the wake of the death of Sister Ingrid Salt, the child and youth worker and CUPE member who died from COVID-19. While our conversations didn't relate to the specifics around Sister Ingrid's situation, her passing did make us look more closely at why Ontario schools are so poorly equipped to deal with the pandemic. Because it's become pretty clear that the pandemic has really only put the spotlight on the crisis that has been building in our school for almost 30 years. You can trace most of the problems back to the failure of one provincial government after another to fund our schools properly. The Ford government is just one in a long line that has put business interests before people's health. It's just that in a pandemic, it becomes really obvious when a government isn't protecting the public, especially children and people who are vulnerable. When the pandemic hit in March, everyone knew what it would take to keep students and workers safe. Everyone knew that to prevent the transmission of COVID-19, schools would need better ventilation, better cleaning protocols, smaller class sizes, more staffing, and personal protective equipment. And because school boards have been consistently underfunded for years, it came as no surprise when they couldn't deal with COVID-19 the way they needed to. Funding had already been cut to the bone, so boards didn't have enough staff in place to keep cohorts small and to make sure that workers like EAs didn't have to move from class to support students. Hundreds of schools have old and outdated HVAC systems. Many of them are still heated by boilers that were installed decades ago. The province should have had a rolling program in place years ago so that boards could modernize their schools' HVAC, but it never happened. There's no provincial cleaning standards for Ontario schools, so boards are stuck putting piecemeal solutions in place. We don't even know if there are extra custodians assigned to perform deep cleaning in schools that have been recording outbreaks. In the previous video, I mentioned the 500 public health nurses who were hired to support schools during the pandemic. A lot of parents and workers were encouraged by that announcement. But I'll say again, these nurses have not been seen in our schools, and even the ministry can't tell us what they do. It's all typical of governments that have starved schools of funding and let down students, families, and workers time after time. It's just that because this time we're in a pandemic, the consequences are devastating and immediate. At the moment, education workers are living with the very real possibility that schools will go the way of long-term care homes. It's a dark thought, but one that we have got to consider and organize to make sure it doesn't happen. Thank you.